Hello, welcome to VMC. I'm Dr. M. Today we are going to cover the journalism that was done about the $10,000 surgery and the fallout that's been occurring because of it. Join me, you'll learn something. In case you aren't aware, there was an article that was put out from the WGME, and the person who wrote the article is named Marissa Bodner. This article came out on June 7th, 2022, and it involves a clinic called Maine Veterinary Medical Center, as well as a 4-month-old German Shepherd dog, Jaxx, and the person had acquired Jaxx from a breeder. The person told the news outlet that Jaxx had been feeling unwell, lethargic for a couple of weeks. Eventually, they contacted their general practice clinic, and that clinic advised them that they really needed to contact the emergency clinic. So they did, and Jaxx was admitted May 26th to the Maine Veterinary Medical Center. According to the article, the owner then says that the following day, on May 27th, they are told about the skewer and that there will be a $10,000 surgery. She says that she and her fiance scrambled all day to try to sort out financing for this, but were unable to, and that they only qualified for a small fraction of the bill. At 4:30 p.m., they are told that the surgery has now become incredibly urgent. They signed paperwork to surrender Jaxx and owed around $3,000 for the care that Jaxx had already received. The owner then tells the reporter that it was 9 p.m. that same day where they now had all of the money that they needed, and that they contacted the vet clinic and were told that they were not able to have Jaxx returned to them. In the time since this has happened, the owner has filed a police report against the clinic, has gone to the state veterinary board and filed a report, and has gone to the media. This article ended up going viral, and it has resulted in hundreds and hundreds of threats against the vet clinic. They're also receiving threats against staff lives and the families of the staff. The phone lines have been purposefully jammed so that people who urgently need veterinary care are unable to reach the clinic. The clinic has had to have a police presence around the clock due to the risk of the clinic actually coming to harm. On Google, there were enough requests to change the business to a casket service that this actually happened for some time, although I see it's been changed back now. There have been hundreds of voicemails and hundreds of emails threatening and bullying the vet clinic. Now, you might think that this is a one-off, that this is a rare occasion, that this never happens. But the reality is this happens all the time. In 2014, the AVMA put out a survey asking about how common cyberbullying is for vet clinics, and they found that 20% of the people who responded to that survey have gone through an experience similar to this. I've had to call police before because of threats against myself and my staff. I have been yelled at, I have been punched, I have been thrown against a wall. This sort of abuse happens to veterinary medical professionals all the time. Now, I originally did not say anything about this article that had been posted by the WGME because I'm very aware about how there are two sides to every story, and I didn't want to drive publicity to this story. However, now the Maine Veterinary Medical Center has put out a statement in response. They say that originally they didn't talk to the media because they were attempting to respect the privacy of the pet owner, and they were naive in thinking that the article would be a well-researched and balanced one. They also reference the fact that they tend to hold themselves to HIPAA standards, even though this is a human medical thing. In the veterinary community, we tend to hold ourselves to these same standards to protect the privacy of clients and to respect the difficulty and acknowledge the challenges of what they are going through. We deal with a lot of people on their worst days, and we try to be kind and considerate about that. However, it's important that we notice that the veterinary community does not have a HIPAA equivalent. So the MVMC response was put up on June 11th, and in it they discuss how Jaxx presented very painful to the clinic and how they were told from the owner there was no way he could have eaten anything he wasn't supposed to. He was tested for parvovirus and he was set up with supportive care. For the initial assessment, testing, and care, the estimate that was given to the owner was around $3,000. This doesn't surprise me. All of these things cost money and are very time and labor intensive. Unfortunately, despite ruling out some common issues like parvo, Jaxx worsened and the next morning had an abdominal ultrasound. This ultrasound showed that there was a skewer from the duodenum, which is the very beginning of the small intestine, and it pierced through the small intestine, through the liver, through the diaphragm, and was also sticking into the chest. No wonder this dog was in excruciating pain, and this is also incredibly serious. The other thing that the ultrasound found is that there was fluid in both the chest and the abdomen. This becomes particularly concerning because this is going to be some fluid leaking out from the intestines. This will cause infection as we have bacteria that help to digest our food, and it's great when that bacteria is inside the GI tract, but when it gets out of the GI tract, this quickly causes life-threatening issues. So when you have an ultrasound that is indicating what Jaxx's ultrasound did, the surgery to repair this is an immense undertaking. And it's one that a lot of vet clinics wouldn't even be able to do because you're going to need breathing support when you have opened the chest. This is not a simple foreign body surgery. This is much, much more complicated than that. The procedure would involve opening the abdomen, repairing the small intestine. Maybe some of it will need to come out. It would depend on how it's been damaged. The abdomen will need to be lavaged to try to remove as much of the infection that's in there as is possible. The liver will need to be repaired. Who knows what that will all involve. Once the abdomen has been taken care of, you still have to fix the dog's chest and the damage that's happened there. The diaphragm, which is the muscle between the lungs and the abdomen, was ruptured. The skewer had gone through it, so that will need to be repaired. The chest would need to be lavaged to try to remove as much infection from in there as is possible. Chest tubes would need to be placed. Abdominal draining tubes would need to be placed. The care after surgery would be very intensive around the clock for a number of days. So at 9:30 in the morning, the findings of the ultrasound, the plan that would be necessary to save Jaxx, or to attempt to save Jaxx, because there's no guarantee. This might not be successful. They are given the estimate for what the cost of care would be, although you can never give a precise amount because you just don't know what's going to happen. But around $10,000 was estimated. The owner was made aware that the options for financing could involve things like Care Credit, Wells Fargo, a loan, credit cards, scratch pay. The clinic also works with every pet insurance company. And the owner said they needed to talk to their fiance and get back to the clinic. I mean, fair enough. Of course you do. You need to talk to loved ones about these things. Usually in these situations, when I'm told that, I get a phone call back within 10 or 20 minutes. After 90 minutes, the clinic called the owner again, because she had not called back. She told them they were trying to get financing together. At 1:30 in the afternoon, the clinic called again because they had not heard back from the owner. At this point, the owner said, I should hear about a bank loan by 3 p.m. At 4 p.m., the clinic called again because they had not heard from the owner. You have to remember that throughout this entire long day, this dog has a skewer stabbing through its intestines, through its liver, through its diaphragm, and into its chest. And despite all of the very careful supportive care that it's being given, this dog's getting worse. It has sepsis, and as time passes on, it's declining. And so the owner was told, your dog has destabilized and this is now an urgent need to go to surgery now, like right away. And this is very fair because if the dog gets too unstable, they will not survive surgery. At 4 p.m., the vet clinic discussed euthanasia, paying for the surgery, and surrendering the dog. The owner chose to surrender the dog and sign the paperwork to do so. What happens in these cases is that there is someone who's willing to pay for the bill that the dog has and who will then take over ownership of that dog. The owner is still liable for the bill that Jaxx has before being surrendered, and we know that bill was around $3,000. The owner had also apparently set up a GoFundMe. That GoFundMe raised $100, and it was closed when Jaxx had been surrendered. What the media did with their one-sided sensationalistic reporting has caused so much harm. Animals that need the main veterinary medical center have been unable to get care because of it. The moral injury to all the staff and their family and to the veterinary community at large is immense. The response of the public, the bullying, the cyberbullying, the threats, the death threats is entirely unacceptable and inappropriate. I don't understand why there is this perception that veterinarians are obligated to treat animals for free. I mean, don't get me wrong. I wish more than anything that we could, but we are not subsidized by the government. If the client doesn't pay their bill, we don't get paid. And this happens regularly. People think, oh, we'll just help just this one. But what you don't understand is that animals like Jaxx come in every day. And if you are doing discounts and free treatments, you won't be able to keep your clinic open. And there is an immense amount of overhead to keep a hospital running. Veterinary medicine is a service industry. It is just like a grocery store, a pharmacy, a car mechanic. You need the things that those places offer. You would not go to a mechanic, even though you need your car, and expect them to fix your car for free. It's the same with the grocery store. There are many, many things that humans need that we pay for. And if we can't pay for that service, we cannot access that service. For some reason, people seem to forget about the cost that's associated with the privilege of having pets. Here's what I wish the media had said. How underpaid and understaffed vet med is, and how we are under an immense amount of strain at the moment. You cannot expect clinics to offer payment plans. They can't afford to do it. They are not financial institutions. Cases like Jaxx also result in clinics no longer offering surrender as an option. This means that more pets will end up being euthanized when they could be saved. Not only is that horrific for the animal, it increases the moral injury to the veterinary staff and is very hard on them. We want to save the animal. That's why we do the job we do. I ask you, please be prepared in the event of an emergency. And if you are in a spot where you do not have access to $10,000 at the drop of a hat, get pet insurance. If you are unable to afford pet insurance because things have been hard, I understand. But then what you must understand as well is that if your pet needs something that you are not able to afford, you will need to choose euthanasia to prevent suffering for your animal. That is not the fault of the vet clinic that's trying to help you and your pet. Sometimes life is awful and we don't get to make the choices we want. These aren't easy decisions. Nobody likes having to talk about this. I wish I didn't have to talk about money. I wish I could just fix every animal that I'm able to. But that's not the reality of it. As a pet owner, you need to take responsibility for what happens with your animals. And please be kind to your vet clinics. Thank them, understand they're doing the best they can, understand that medicine is expensive and that they are underpaid and overworked as it is. And anytime you see these sorts of sensationalized news stories, please don't engage with them. It simply drives the story and worsens the bullying that the vet clinic receives. I know this is a little bit different than the videos that I usually make, but I felt this subject needed to be addressed, and I hope you'll join me next Friday when we post a new video. Until then, you take care. Bye.